This is your sign to start sewing. If you have a sewing machine and you've been thinking about getting a sewing machine, this is your sign to start now. If you want to get into sewing like I am, but you have absolutely no idea where to start and what to research, I am going to help you out as a beginner and share with you guys everything that I researched in order to get me to the point of feeling very comfortable enough to start my very first project. I also created a playlist of all the videos that I did watch in order to get me to this point. So you guys don't even have to do a lot of your own research, honestly, unless you want to. But these are all the videos that I watched that made me feel very, very knowledgeable and help me understand the concept of sewing and everything that goes into it. So let's get started. Up first, if you don't have a sewing machine, you want to find a sewing machine, because how are you gonna sew without a machine? Unless you're planning on hand sewing, which I have done. I hand sewed a pleated skirt. This is how it looks. For some reason, I stopped knitting for a while, like a period of time. And I guess you can say this was officially the start of my sewing journey, but I have no idea what possessed me to. I created these pleats by hand. Like we can save that for another video. So you want to find a sewing machine, and you want to do as much research as possible when trying to find a sewing machine, because you really want to make sure that you're investing in a great sewing machine that's going to last you a while. Like, you don't want to get something that's going to last a little bit and then it breaks down and all that stuff. So you want to get different opinions from different people. So I would definitely suggest watching multiple videos on basically best beginner sewing machine or best budget friendly sewing machine, anything along those lines, so you guys can really make a great decision with choosing your very first sewing machine. If you already have a sewing machine or you got your sewing machine, then you want to research everything there is to know about your machine. You want to get very comfortable using this machine. There's no point in having a machine and just having it sit there in a box and collect dust because you're scared to use it. You have to feel so comfortable using this you can do it in your sleep. So learn everything that you possibly can about your machine. Research your exact machine, how to use blank machine, how to thread blank machine, how to literally learn everything you can about your machine, so when it is time to sew, you are so comfortable using it. And at this point, if you do have your machine, I would actively practice like threading the bobbin. I think that's the correct terminology for it. Threading your machine as a whole. Like, you want to practice as you're watching these videos, and don't just consume and not actually practice on your machine, because it's one thing to watch videos, but it is a totally different thing to actually do it. Because when I was watching all these videos, I was like, this is literally easy. Like, I could do this in my sleep. I pulled out my sewing machine and I tried to thread it, and I was like, what the actual hell? This is harder than it looks. So practice on your machine. Don't just watch videos and, think you're doing something. Practice on your machine. I promise you, it's a totally different experience. Please trust me. So after you've done your research, you then want to start researching. I don't know why the word research beats my, like, what the hell? Anyway, you want to research everything you will need to start sewing. So sewing tools for beginners, and there's not really a lot that you need to start off sewing. You just need a sewing machine and like scissors, and literally it's like a handful of items. You don't need to go crazy trying to buy like every single thing, because you can buy as you go. If you're sewing a project, you might realize like, hey, I need this, hey, I might need this, hey, I might need that. So you don't have to try and buy every single thing one time before you start sewing. I know it can be used as a great excuse, like, oh, I'm not sewing because I don't have this now. You don't need every single thing. You just need a handful of items, and then you can buy materials as you go. So after you've done that research, I would then start researching things like sewing tips for beginners or sewing basics for beginners. So you start understanding the concept and everything that truly goes into sewing as a whole. When I watch these videos that I have in my playlist, it really helped me understand sewing as a whole and literally everything that goes into it. And a lot of these videos already cover materials you'll need and how to use your machine, and it's a really well-rounded video to like get you into sewing and get you really comfortable with even the thought of sewing. And after watching these videos, I felt way more comfortable, and sewing was less daunting than it was when I first started researching and thinking about getting into it. So I loved watching these videos because it made me feel way more comfortable than I did before. So after you have researched that, I would then start learning about fabrics and needles and different needles. You can use different needles for different fabric types, and learning about stitches as well, because you can use different stitches for different fabrics and all that stuff. So you want to learn everything there is to learn about that. And I have great videos in my playlist about this topic because I wanted to know everything there was to learn about fabrics, and literally everything to learn about fabrics, how to even buy fabrics, what to look for if I'm trying to sew a dress, or what fabric to get if I'm trying to sew like a t-shirt, what fabric to get if I want jeans and the weight of it, GSM. You want to learn all the fabric terms as well, so you know what you're buying and you're not just like, oh, this is cute, you buy it and it's meant for like cargo pants and you're trying to sew a very flowy dress. So you want to learn fabrics and learn how to buy it and what goes into it and all those things, so that you are very knowledgeable in that and you're not confused and buying the wrong things and wasting money on accident because you didn't know. So you want to make sure you're very knowledgeable about fabric types and the stitches and the needles you use, and even the presser foot and all that. Like literally you want to learn all that, because learning all that makes you way more comfortable with sewing as a whole, and you really want to get very comfortable with the concept of sewing, because then it's just going to seem scarier than it really is, and who wants that? Like, sewing is so cool. At this point, if you do have your sewing machine, I would definitely recommend you start practicing sewing. So if you have any scrap fabric that you can use, you might want to start practicing different stitches, and you also want to learn about tension as well on the machine and stitch width and all of that. You want to practice zigzag stitch. You might want to practice doing the buttonhole stitch. I don't even know if that's what it's called. You want to practice different stitches and getting yourself comfortable with understanding different stitches and what it's used for and how it looks, how it feels, and all of that. So again, you want to be hands-on with this as much as possible and not just sit there consuming, and then never practicing, and you're still uncomfortable even though you watch the video. So while you're watching these videos, practice, because the more you practice, the more comfortable you're going to get. After that, I would then start learning about everything sewing pattern related. How to read a sewing pattern, the difference between a PDF pattern, a paper pattern, how to print out PDF patterns, how to tape PDF patterns together or glue it together. Literally everything there is to learn about sewing patterns, because you want to learn how to read them. If a lot of us are going to be starting out with patterns, and you're gonna want to learn how to read a pattern. So I would definitely watch as many videos as I can about everything sewing pattern related, and really getting comfortable with being able to understand how a sewing pattern works and everything that goes into that, so you are very comfortable. And so when you are ready to buy a sewing pattern, you know exactly what to do, how to cut it out, how to do this, how to do that, and you're not stressed or worried at all. After that, I would then start watching how-to videos to understand how sewing works with different projects. So I would start watching like how to sew pants, how to sew a dress, how to sew a bag, how to sew a top, so you can really understand what goes into sewing different garments. You can see like a tank top is literally 2 panels and you just sew it together, and it really makes sewing less daunting when you watch these videos, because it's like, oh, that's it, like, okay, like it kind of hypes you up and you're like, okay, that's kind of easy, I can kind of do that. Like pants, when I watch how to sew pants, I was like, that's it, I can 100% do pants. Like obviously watching and doing 2 different things, but it literally makes you feel way better about getting into it than you did before. Like now that I see people sewing pants, I'm like, it's not as scary as it was before when I first started researching about it. Like now that I have watched these videos and I see what goes into it, I'm like, I can definitely see how I will be able to sew pants eventually. I can see how I'll be able to sew a dress eventually. Like it's less scary when you watch these videos and actually see what goes into it. Can it look scary? Absolutely. But at least you see what goes into it rather than just like assuming it's scary. I don't know. That's how it works for me. It might be different for you, but that's what made me feel the most comfortable when I actually watched these videos and saw what goes into it. And that made me feel less scared to get into sewing. After you have done all of the research that I mentioned, now it's time to start sewing. So you might want to start looking up sewing patterns to get started on sewing. So you can find patterns on Etsy or just Google sewing patterns, like free sewing patterns, and you can also find some on Pinterest as well. And you guys can comment down below where you get your patterns from, because I'm so beginner. Like, I'm just giving my beginner tips with everything that I did, but I still need tips myself. So you guys can definitely comment down below where you get your patterns and where you get your fabric as well. That will definitely be helpful for us beginners for sure. But that is all the research that I did to get me to the point of feeling very confident enough to start my very first project. Like, I'm very excited to start, and I'm really excited to wear my garments as well. Like, I get to just sew something and wear it. Like, that is just such a cool concept to me. So I'm super excited to get started, and you need to get started as well. This is your sign to start sewing. If you have a sewing machine and you've been thinking about getting a sewing machine, this is your sign to start now. Let's start sewing. Anyway, that is all I have for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!